Welcome. Fine Line Friday, guys. This is where we take 30 minutes and start working on the business rather than probably what we did all week, which was in the business, in the ruts, making sure that things were happening. We're going to take 30 minutes today and we're going to work on the business. And what we're going to talk about is the front side. So let's say the sales, business development, lead development, whatever word we want to use. And talking about is picking up the phone dead, right? There's so much buzz and noise going on about like, okay, is telemarketing real? Does it work anymore? Is there some new shiny things that all of a sudden replaces it? And that's what we're going to be going into. So I'm excited to be able to go through this. Will, welcome.
Yes, sir. Welcome back. Love doing these.
Yeah. Awesome. So let's start this off. Let's dive in. Um, have you heard that, right? Like how often are you on, let's just say social media, right? Because that's the influencer at this point right now, where it's like we'll put 100 leads in your inbox and you're wondering like, does that work? Is it actually working? Do you run
Yeah,
into that?
all the time, right? And yeah, we're also a business and we get extra amounts of that. But even in my personal side, I see it. I see it all over the place. And, I think it's like one of those things where it's grouped in with a lot of, I'll say efforts, and it almost has like a bad name. Like I'm getting so many calls from this telemarketer. It's like, oh, this guy telemarketing, and I think that lends itself into this image that it has. But as we dive deeper into this, I'm sure we'll pick that apart and get to talk all about it. But absolutely.
There is. So you're right. And when I think telemarketing, like it instantly to me becomes a bad word. Like I would never post a job ad with the name telemarketer because it has so many bad things behind it. I just think like when AT&T calls you and you hear the call center in the background and then they call you the wrong name, right? It's like, "Yo, is Mike around?" It's like, "Nah, bro. Wrong number. Later." And you hang up. When I think telemarketing, that's what comes to mind for me. What about you?
It is. It's too. And often like it's noisy. They don't care. They're just dial, trying to say something. And it's just off putting, but unfortunately, it seems like that's turned into today's way that you describe outbound efforts in general. You ran some of the most successful call centers years back, and that's
Yeah.
what it was. Although yours was more targeted and successful, but that's what I think too.
It is. So where I would like to take the conversation today is one, everybody showed up, right? Is telemarketing dead? And I'm going to shift it. And we can answer this question at the end, and you guys will be able to answer it for yourself. But everything that we do is to be able to create an interaction with the customer, right? So anything inside sales or business development, we're trying to ultimately get from what activity do we have to do, right? Activity being it's a phone call, it's an email, it's LinkedIn. I don't care what it is. What are you going to waste your time, energy, and maybe company's money on, right? To be able to talk to somebody. And that's when you break it down of what is telemarketing. Telemarketing is picking up the phone and calling your customer, right? And not even that, picking up the phone and calling a prospect. And when we break it down like that, I'd like to go into the different types of individuals, right? So we're talking commercial roofing here. And I'm going to go into service, but that really doesn't matter because when you're in a business development side and you pick the phone up, right? And again, I don't care what the activity is. You pick the phone up, you send the email, you go on LinkedIn, whatever it is. Most of the time, unless you're following a storm, you don't know what your customer has. You don't know if it's a roof replacement. You don't know if it's preventative maintenance because they're looking to do, whatever it is. You're just looking to have an interaction with somebody. Do you see that the same way, Will?
Do you want that initial touch, that initial conversation to gauge interest, to set the table to see if they'll sit down at that table and have further conversations around it? That
Yep.
driving by a real estate agent sign, seeing the number, calling it, right? And then, or getting a business card and seeing the number on it, calling it. That's the very, very beginning. That's the start of it all. Absolutely.
And it's beautiful that you said that because you said call. And if that's the action that you take, there's nothing wrong with that. It's actually beautiful that you see the real estate, you're going dry, you're driving by a strip mall, you see that it says, leases by X and you pick the phone up. That's fine. The question is that I'm really going to break this down. Is the person you are calling going to answer the phone? Is the person you are emailing going to answer the email? Is the person that you're on LinkedIn sending a direct message to going to respond on LinkedIn? And that's where all of this comes into play. That all of the stuff we do is like you said, it's that first touch, it's that first interaction. But the real thing that makes the difference is, are we communicating on our customer's channel? Are we communicating on how our customer likes to communicate? So jumping into that world, Will, when you were running your roofing side, how many different channels, right, types of communication did you have throughout your customers? So like email, text
The,
message, phone, LinkedIn, like what did you see that was common?
well, we had four. One was in person, phone call, email, and text. And what I saw was the most common is certainly email. Dealing with school districts, dealing with property managers. That was our sector of where we did work. Email was the most prominent. Now, some of the building owners preferred text, so the reps knew that. Hey, we text this guy. Actually, text the tenant when we're on our way. Things like that that we had to discover and understand and continue to manage. And I think it's really important to kind of figure that out. If something's not working, change the channel, right? And
Mm.
is there more? I mean, there's probably more. Facebook and LinkedIn. I don't know if that was.
There is, and I think step one to all of this, and whether you're a sales leader, a business owner, wherever you are, what's your primary communication channel? It's the first thing that I want to say. What is yours? Right? What would you prefer? Would you prefer me to call you? Would you prefer me to email you? Would you prefer me to text message you? And I'm making you think about this because that is what you're going to naturally gravitate toward. If you
Mhm.
hate email, right? Like I hate email, you're going to be the individual that picks the phone up, and you're going to be the individual, and assuming, right? You're the individual that picks the phone up and makes the phone call. However, that's what you do. If you were to pick the phone up, and anybody who works with me understands that phone is not my primary, right? I'm in meetings all day. I'm jumping back and forth with contractors. We're doing cool stuff like this. Phone is not my number one means of communication, which means if you want to talk to me, you have to find a different channel. And that's where all of this comes in. And that's where it gets really, really cool when you start diving in to like the different types or personas, right? That's a buzzword, a persona, which is ultimately just the type of customer you're working with, right? Which has a lot to do with age, has a lot to do with their role, right? Which will break both of those down. And it has a lot to do with maybe how they were brought into the business, right? Someone, and I always think about like some of my younger helpers or foremen inside trucks, like they would much rather me text them, right? We could have an entire conversation with my 11-year-old via text message when he's up inside his room, simply because that's how the communication works, right
His
or
channel.
wrong. It's a channel. That's his channel. And that's the only thing that matters is his channel. Who are you talking to? And what is their preferred communication channel? So what is yours, Will? So if we think about like all the different things, all the different noise that's coming into you, what is your channel? What would you prefer? Perfect world.
Yeah, and it's funny because I'm thinking through as you're talking. I'm like, well, what's my channel? And I'll give you an example. Text messaging. I think I'm busy. I'm in and out of meetings, fighting the clock all day, every day, and I don't always get to answer the phone. But I'll see a text, and I think everyone could relate to that to some level. But I'll see a text, and even if I'm at a meeting, I'll glance on it. The iPhone does a good job of, I guess all phones do, good job of summarizing what's on that text. You could see it quicker. But
Mhm.
I was being sold a service just recently, and I met with them and looked at their product, and I was watching their sales process. I'm always watching sales processes. Well, how do they sell, and what's working from it? What helps me be a better customer? I was watching their sales process, and it started with these automated reminders that, hey, we're meeting's about to start. And it didn't just come in email, it texted me too. A little overkill, not two channel kind of guy. But after the meeting, there were follow up methods where phone call, and then no voicemail, but text. And I saw the text and responded back. And I think that's kind of what continued the conversation is because he did speak my channel. So for me, it's text. What about you? What's yours?
So mine's text message. And the world, so originally before and this is Apple. I don't want any Android pieces inside this. Before Apple had the ability to mark a text message as unread, like that was my biggest pet peeve because once you read a text message, it was gone, right? Until you had to go back in. Now that you can mark it as unread, text message is number one, email is number two, and then phone would be number three. Now, I still look at my phone, but anybody who works with me knows that if you're going to get a call from me, it's after 5 p.m. Because that's when I'm catching up, I'm closing out my day, I'm listening to voicemails. But if you send me a text message, right? Like you said, you got that nice summary that's there. But guess what, guys? That's just me. Think about the facility manager. Let's start jumping into personas. Okay. So number one, let's think about this guy he works for Coca-Cola. He's a facilities manager. He has a 250,000 square foot bottling plant for Coca-Cola. I'm just making this stuff up, right? And he's responsible for everything within that plant. He doesn't sit at a desk and a computer all day like I do, right? All the time. He's busy. He's on the floor. He's seeing what's going on. He's doing this and that. How does that change? Right? What's his preferred communication piece? He looks at his email at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. I look at my email every second, right? Like that's my world is I'm constantly just either battling emails, battling tasks, or battling meetings, not in a bad way. That's my world. What is your customer's world? Right? So let's look at that facility manager, right? Now, let's take this to the opposite end of the world and let's look at a property manager. Property manager, okay, number one, works remotely, okay, doesn't go into the office every single day. He lives in California. He manages buildings that are in New York or Florida or Georgia, right? All of his information that he gets is via email because that's how I'm just making it up. CBRE operates, right, or whatever property management firm he's with. How does that change, right? How does that individual communicate based upon the job, where his locations are at, right, and how he manages and makes data or makes decisions? So the real question behind all of this is here's the reframe to it is not is telemarketing dead? The question is, do your clients, right? Do the people that you are, and I say clients, right? Because that's the first part, make it easy for your customer to work with you. Because if it's phone call that you like, and your customers, right, are younger or wherever the situation is, different generation, different way of being able to do business, if they don't want to make a phone call, but you make them place a phone call to dispatch a leak to you, you're making it harder for them. And trust me, nobody wants to work harder to work for somebody else or to get something from someone else. That
Absolutely.
makes sense?
That's
Any
just the way I,
input on
it's interesting too. You're really getting deep into the different channels, and it makes sense to dive into understanding those channels for your customers, your buyers. And the landscape's changing, it's evolving. It's not what it was 10, 20 years ago, and it's not going to be this way in 10 years from now. The channels are going to add, it could, I don't know, WhatsApp, it could be Facebook Messenger, it could be Slack. I think the channels are going to open up, and that the contractors are going to need to adapt to it, right? It's like younger people are now sitting behind desks making decisions with these buildings, and guess what? The younger generation grew up being able to Uber and order on Amazon and have a box show up the same day. It's that's the generation that we will be catering to, and it's already trickling in and happening. So now I feel like we have this wide array of potential customers that we're dealing with and a wide array of channels to communicate to them. Do you see it any different?
exactly the same. And now I'm going to throw the wrench in for you. So I told you guys something a few minutes ago that instantly overnight changed my primary communication path. You remember what it was?
Mhm.
Mark text messages unread. I was
Yes.
Monday, email on Monday, guys. On Tuesday, as soon as that update come out and I can mark things instantly, that was my new favorite way of communicating. So you're changing, right? The technology is changing, the resources are changing. You talk about all these kind of different channels. That's going to take us into the next part, which is noise, right? And noise is ultimately how okay, I'm going to give you guys real world and you're going to feel some of my pain. Oh, and I think you probably have the same. When you wake up, I don't care what time you wake up, if it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever time it is, and you go into your email, whether that be laying inside bed after you take a shower or even when you sit down for your office. Will, give me a guess of how many emails you have in your inbox every morning at 8 a.m.
New ones or total?
Just new ones. No ones that had came in that day, that morning.
Yeah, overnight, easy 20, right? Easy 20. And I'm clearing it before bed, trying to.
So what happens? What's the first thing that you do? You got 20 unread emails in your inbox sent to you between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. and you log in. What are you doing?
Yeah, immediately I'm getting rid of the noise. I'm getting rid of what I don't need to act on, but I'm seeing the messages. Okay, that's handled. That's handled. Spam, spam. That's good. Need to handle this. Mark on red, right? That's my process.
There's the noise, right? You said spam, 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 right? That's the noise that on an email side, right? So we're talking about different channels right now. You instantly either saw the sender or saw the subject. And if you're anything like me, you marked it as read. You didn't even open the email. You didn't give it a chance to do anything because it was sent in that noise time, right? Which is 6 to 8 a.m. or whatever it is. And from my side, I'm with you, dude. I probably have more than 20 and it's red, 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 keep red, 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 right? And I'm just going through it because I'm just getting rid of the noise. That is
Yeah.
the second thing that you guys are going to run into, right? No different with phone calls. No different with phone calls. No different with LinkedIn. No different with everything else. And that's going to be the next hurdle that you guys have to overcome is that this is no more like I place a phone call and my client or my prospects happy to talk to me. Now you're in a point of where technology has made it available for a company to literally send 500 voicemails in a second. You've made it where they can send 10,000 emails in a click of a button, right? It's all of this noise that you guys have to go through. So again, we go back, is telemarketing dead? It all depends on your customer and how well you guys can beat through that noise. Because if you're trying to find people like me and you're picking up the phone, it's not going to work, guys. But if you're looking into, let's just say, facility managers or maintenance managers that are in the building, right? Or even I explain it like this. Think about the customer that calls you up and says, "Hey, I'm having a leak out of the building. When can you guys come out and take a look at it with me?" That's the individual that wants to meet with somebody. That's the individual that wants to walk the building with somebody. That interaction type is 2000% different than the facility manager that call or the property manager that calls you up that's in California is like, "Hey, I got a building in Alpharetta. I got a roof leak out there. Can you guys take care of that for me?" He doesn't want to meet with you on site. He doesn't want to do any of that stuff. Let alone he probably didn't even call you, to be honest with you. It was probably an email that got sent to you. So it's understanding all of these channels, right? And Will, you said a great part to it that the meeting that you ran, before the meeting, they did two channels, right? Didn't they? Didn't you say it was email and text message?
Right.
So I don't want to say they were fishing, right? But they took two of the primary channels, assuming that Will was going to look at his email or he's going to look at his text message, which ultimately those are the two primary ones they have. Now, could they have picked the phone up and just said, "Hey, Will, just want to make sure you're good for tomorrow"? Yeah, they could have. Would that have made a difference? Probably not, because you probably wouldn't have answered the phone. But that's where you got to figure out who are you meeting with, right? What are the personas that you're meeting with and how do they communicate? So think about that. That's going to be the homework for you guys is when you look at your business, let's go high level first and say, what type of people do we typically work with? Is it technology property managers that want the beautiful photos? And if I don't submit enough photos, they're asking me questions about my invoices? Or is it the individual that walks up on the roof with you, meets you on site, gives you access to the roof, and he's the one that's walking around on the roof with you? Because that's his facility. That's that's what he's in charge of. Two completely different worlds and two completely different channels on how you're going to communicate with them. So Will, from your side, so you said you had four primary channels. How did you how did you know which one was preferred to each client?
Yeah, I think that it takes a sense of really just being aware. But you're also having to be aware on behalf of your sales reps or account managers and teach them to be aware of those channels. I always talked about response times too. So it was expected that if a rep got an email or the company received an email that they got a touch within the hour, right? Ideally, it's instantaneous. If you can't solve it right then and there, then let the client know that you're working on it, or you'll get them an answer. So as they're emailing and as phone calls are being placed, we recorded the type of contact method in our system, in our CRM. And we even had alerts too. A lot of people have alerts, but we have alerts built in that was specific to what touch points were necessary for each client. Now, if someone calls in a roof leak or emails you a roof leak, there's a lot of people to communicate with. You've got people in the building, potentially out of the building, potentially in other states. What are all of their channels? What we did back then wasn't as I'd say robust as what you're describing, but you got to get with the times. What are the desired channels? 5 years ago, it's either call or email majority. Some were text, some were very much so. They wanted to be in person. They wanted to be face to face, and that was your explanation of the plant manager, right? Completely different experience. So that's just how we managed it, and I think battling through the noise of trying to get rid of stuff that you don't need to touch is part of the struggle. And how do you penetrate that? You're talking about what you do every morning, clear, 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 get rid of it. I'm doing that after every meeting, after every chance I get, I'm looking through trying to clear the noise. So I love the conversation because how do you get through that? Because I'm thinking myself, what kind of message could anyone ever text me that gets me interested? And it's a hard one to answer.
It is. And it's different. It's different in what territories you're in. It's different in what you're trying to offer, right? And I'm just high level here. Let's use text message. We have a big storm that rolls through whatever metro I'm in. Can you text message your customer and just say, "Hey, I wanted to check in, make sure you guys are dry after we had, the storms last night." Right? That's a text message that you can send. And if your customer is receptive to that, right? Because text message is more personal, right? A prospecting, I've never worked with you before. I mean, I've gotten things from like an oil dealership, right? It's like, hey, come get your oil changed. And it's like instantly, it's bad, right? Like I'm thinking about it. It's like, dude, you just text me on my personal phone about an oil change, red, I'm done. So it can go both ways. It can be good, it can be bad. And that's where you got to understand, again, what's your customer's channel? We'll go through this, especially inside future Fine Line Fridays. But you talked about how do you know what works and what doesn't, and I'll say the most clarity. Trying to pick my words. The most clarity I have is emails. So emails is ultimately three things that we look at. Number one, did it make it to the inbox? Right? And if it made it to the inbox, that's step one, which means I bypassed spam and I bypassed all of the promotional filters that Gmail has, whatever it is, right? I made it to Will's inbox. Awesome. The second thing that I want to do is I want to see, did you open it? Right? And open it has everything to do with the subject, right? Was my subject intriguing enough that Will's going to open it? Or did it just say, best commercial roofing service coach in America, right? If Will sees that, is that going to intrigue him? Probably not, right? So, how intriguing is my subject? So, did it get to the inbox? Number one. Number two, did they open it? So, if Will opens it, awesome. Now, number three is the trigger. Did they do what I wanted them to do? Okay. And I say it that way because did your email intend for them to reply? Which at that point, did Will reply to me? Yes or no? Then I know it's a win or a loss. Did I want Will to click a button and go to my website? Did I want him to fill out a form? Whatever it is, what do you want him to do? Right? What's that call to action? And you can create those same things within telemarketing, right? So when you pick up the phone and you make a call to a prospect, it's no different, right? You talk about those actions. That action is I picked up the phone to be able to talk to somebody. And I'm going to kind of bring this back home because at the end of the day, as me putting on my sales manager hat, right, business development manager hat, I truly don't care what you do as long as it works. Because what I do in
Hmm.
Atlanta, Georgia, is going to be different than Memphis. It's going to be different than Dallas. It's going to be different than Chicago because the personas are different. The people are different. How they interact is different. So you got to be able to understand that. And Will, you said something that was beautiful because you were using your CRM system to be able to document the preferred communication path. And that is cool because anybody now, even let's just say your service coordinator that's going to call and give the client an ETA, can now see the preferred communication path as text message. That's beautiful. Guess what? Now your service coordinator is going to communicate inside your customer's communication path, which is going to make that customer experience better, which is going to make you guys easier to do business with. You see how this all ties together? This whole thing. So, like, I love the fact that you were doing that. So, figure out what the win is, guys. You need to figure out your customers. That is what will tell you is telemarketing dead, is email dead, all that kind of different stuff. The other thing that I'll say to you guys, and this is biased and this is personal, don't get caught up with shiny things. There's so many shiny, cool things that are out there. AI is improving every single day. And yes, there are some super, super cool stuff. But if you're going to go do something like that, don't make it your primary. Don't put all of your eggs in one basket to say, you know what, I'm going to use Chat GPT to be able to create telemarketing calls so it can talk to my customers. If you want to do it, cool. Go do it. Go be a trendsetter. Go change the world, but don't let it affect what works for you. If you know that email campaigns work, if you know that USPS mailers work, if you know that whatever it is, picking up the phone works, then do it. And to be able to go back into that, guys, how do you know if it works? Because the only reason that you make an activity, the only reason that you stop by a building, you pick up the phone, you send an email, you send a text message, is to be able to have a response or a conversation. And that is the easiest that I can make it for you guys. Your sales reps, as an owner, wherever it is, whatever effort that you guys are going to put in to cultivating a new opportunity or a new lead that's going to go inside the business, right? How many phone calls do you have to make to talk to somebody? How many emails do you have to send to talk to somebody? How many stops by a building, I call them drops, do you have to do in order to be able to talk to somebody? And that number that I just gave you guys will tell you what your most successful use of time is. That's the key to all of this, guys. Is telemarketing dead? It depends on your customer. If you're trying to work with property managers and REITs that are across the other side of the United States that are kids that just got out of college, I'm going to tell you, yeah, it's probably dead. If you're working with facilities and maintenance managers and different types of engineers, right? That have maybe experience, maybe they deal with their bosses, their internal communications via phone. Maybe it's via phone. But Will, I think you had the key to this, dude. Write it down. Ask the question, what do you prefer? What's your primary communication path? And once you have that answer, execute on that because that will make it easy for your customer to do business with you. And that is one of the biggest keys. If it's hard to do business with you, they're not going to work harder to do business with you. Fact of matter.
Yeah. Well, and everyone's different too, right? So one In one company, you could have multiple channels, and you have multiple people on your team that have to follow
Yep.
those channels, ideally. But I love what you said about making it easier for your clients to buy from you, making it easier for your clients to interact with you, because the ease of them communicating, of you having dialogue back and forth is going to equal more transactions at the end of the day. And there's a lot of options, right? I could blast out as many messages as I want, but for me, it's not personal, right? I'll never respond to those almost out of spite. It's like I could tell if anything it smells like it's automated. I'm not interested. People buy from people that they like, that they trust, and I think if you can figure out that communication channel and be genuine and be that trusted advisor, be that, create that good relationship. It doesn't have to be all business. That's why I love roofing. Roofing isn't suit and tie and very, super formal. We get to shape this however we want. Be yourself. And that's what drives me and what we do.
I love it. It's right there, man. Make it easy for your customer to do business with you. Make it easy for your prospect to do business with you. It's as simple as just asking the question, right? And experiment. Go place 100 phone calls to a property manager, right? To different not one, obviously, different property managers, and see what the result is. Go stop by 100 buildings, see what the result is. Go send 100 text message, see what the result is. Because the numbers are going to help you guys make smarter choices. Drops, they're going to be the biggest time investment that you'll have because it takes time to drive somewhere. It takes time to stop by buildings. But I can tell you, if I spend one day and I can talk to, let's just say 10 people doing drops, but if I spent a whole day making calls and I talk to 6 people, I do drops all day long because it increases the amount of conversations that I'm having. And then that's going to be what my primary is. Is telemarketing dead? Maybe for that case. You guys got to figure out how your customers interact. And that's the homework for you guys. Think about your customers, right? And if you don't know what their communication path is, it's as simple as asking, hey, I want to make sure that we're communicating to you as you prefer. What would you like? Phone call, email, text message, we can do whatever it is. And if you're limiting people on how they're coming into your website or how they're dispatching work to you, which means the only way that they can request a service call is to call you, maybe you need to add a single email that all work orders can go to. Maybe you need to add a text message number, right? There's ways that you can use technology that you send a text message, it converts it into an email, and maybe it gets delivered to you as an email still. There's so many different things that you can do with the technology, but at the end of the day, is it your customer's way to communicate? That's the key to this, guys. That'll give you the answer. You guys' answer is telemarketing dead based upon your customer's persona and how they communicate. That's what I got, Will. Anything you want to add to it, sir?
Nope, that's a wrap, man. That I love it, and I love the ideas, and hopefully these ideas stem into contractors. And I would love to see and hear from anyone that's trying any of these tips. Each week, what we're trying to do is say, hey, here's a little nugget you can pull away. We're trying to encourage you to act on something, because these conversations shouldn't just stop here. Love it.
Right. That's right. And that's why I give you guys the challenges, right? Every time we do this, I give you a challenge to be able to take back real life and try it. And these little things that you're going to do is going to help shape your business on how you move forward. It's going to help shape the sales that you want. And if you're a growing contractor, which I assume anybody in here wants to work on the business, these are the things that are going to take your business to the best next level because you know how you're spending your time, your energy, and money, right? So 3 things that you have. So spend them as wisely as possible. So we got. Thank you guys. I
Yes, sir.
truly, truly appreciate you going into this and spending 30 minutes with Will and I. No, this is an investment for you guys. You're working on the business, but you got to take something from it. You got to do something with it in order to be able to change your future. So cool. Thank you very much, Will. Awesome. I love being here. Thank you for allowing me to be here, sir. And Fine Line Friday.
Thank you as well. See you in 2 weeks.
See you.